To all the escape the city people. Whoa, yo. Greetings to each and everyone, yeah. This edition of 2025 Escape the City Dog Talk. It's I, your Dark Nightingale, Damien Prophet, with none other than Steve Vibronics over there, sir. Glad to have you, Steve. Kako si?
Dobro, ti?
Vidiš, you see, it's getting familiar, like.
Well, I've been coming to Croatia for many years. The first time at Escape the City, and wonderful festival. Like, I mean, here we are. There's like 3 sound system stacks there. There's the sea there. I think back at home in UK, it's like raining 18 degrees. So I'm happier here.
Yeah. Glad to have you here. Glad to have you here. Well, the first cut is the deepest, so they say. So when I hear the word Vibronics, a few things come into my mind, like forward-thinking dub music, the second half of the 90s, Universal Egg, the contemporaries, a few, maybe Zion Train and Jaffrey, but there's, I think, a lot more behind this. So who are Vibronics as a collective, I mean? Or is it only referring to the Steve Vibronics in plural?
I mean, I can't do my thing without this team of people that I work with, which has changed like a lot over the years. But obviously the core of it is me. I make the music, but I make it with lots of other people. So it started in the 90s with different people, and it continues right up to today with a whole new set of collaborations and new artists that I work with. And the only kind of strand that continues is me, because it's like, that's the thing that kind of links it all together. So, and it's funny because obviously with promotion and social media, like, I kind of prefer to use the phrase we rather than I, but it is me doing most of it, to be fair. So.
But you started out in what, 95-ish, 6-ish, like the second half of the 90s, right? Mm-hmm. Yeah, as a collective in Leicester.
Yes.
So Leicester is like in the Midlands, like midway between Manchester and London, kinda.
Yeah.
Stuck in
right in the middle of the country. It's like a kind of small industrial city. It's quite a poor place. But it has this huge diversity of people. So there's a big Caribbean population that came over with Windrush.
Yeah,
there's a very big Indian population as well. And there's there's 2 big universities. So you've got all these different kinds of people, and it's really like a melting pot.
Can you paint me a picture what it was like in 96-ish, like for you?
In 96. Well, 96, I was a young man. I had dreadlocks.
Really?
Yeah, I was still smoking weed every day. Things were very different back then. But I kind of came out of the sort of punk scene when I was a teenager. When I was at school and stuff, I was like playing in punk bands, playing guitar. And then it was only really when I came to Leicester that I discovered like Soundsystem, because I'd started to get more interested in reggae. Because growing up in the UK, like reggae was everywhere. Like in the 1980s, when I was at school, you had these like huge hits, like Smiley Culture and UB40 and like Boris Gardner and Eddie Grant and all these people that had these really, really big hits. It was like pop music, musical youth. There's so many. So even if you weren't following reggae, it was just everywhere growing up in the UK. But it was only when I came to Leicester that I discovered this sound system thing, and that was the time that Abashanti first started playing out. And to this day, his crew are still based in Leicester, even though he's London-based. And friends of mine started saying, "Oh, you must hear this sound system, it's amazing." And then I started going to the sessions, and then there was no turning back after that. I'd never heard reggae music played in that way, because to me, before that, reggae was kind of like armchair music. It was like chill out, have a spliff, put a Scientist album on, and then you go to a dance and it's like everyone's jumping and dancing, and it's so intense and heavy, and it's like, okay, there's no armchairs here, definitely.
No, I mean, it's completely 2 different experiences. Like when you like look at the sound system thing versus like home hi-fi, it's like uncomparable. So basically, you met up with the Abashanti crew, and I think I read or heard somewhere that you produced a tune that they played somebody there. How did you come to that collaboration? You were like a bedroom producer kind of thing, or on your
Yeah,
little
totally. Basically, I had started, because when I first started going to the dances, I thought, like, in my naivety, that it was just like Jamaican music, and maybe old Jamaican music, because the new wave of British dub was so underground. Nobody who wasn't in the scene knew about it, really. And I'd be at the dances, and slowly it started to kind of dawn on me. It's like, well, these are like drum machines I'm hearing. This is like digital. Because it's all so loud and intense to begin with, you can't really pick out what's going on. But the more I started to attend, it's like, okay, this isn't old Jamaican music. And then there'll be a few stalls selling records at the dances, so I started to pick up stuff from like Disciples and Dub Judah and Blacker Mix and Conscious Sounds. And I was listening to it, and it's like, I can do this. I'm going to try and do this anyway.
There's DIY punk ethos there.
Exactly. So, and I'd come from, that's like I say, I'd come from this punk background, like playing in bands. So I had to kind of teach myself how to do the digital thing. And me and some friends, we kind of like taught each other how to do it. We used some very basic equipment. And I'd started making some music, and I just recorded some on a cassette tape. And I was buying records from Barber, rest in peace, who was like Abashanti's right-hand man. And I gave him a tape saying, oh, I've been making this music, it's kind of shit, but maybe you want to listen to it. And he said, oh, this is great, Abashanti will love this. I'm like, oh, no, it's not ready yet. And he said, well, I've given it to him already, and he's cut one onto an acetate, and he's going to play it. And I was like, no way, I couldn't believe it. And then he called me the next day and said, he played it last night in London, you need to come to the next session. So I came with him to the next session, and I heard it being played, and it was just like a transformative experience, because, you know, when you start out, you've got no confidence, and you're just making this music, and then to hear it in a dance, and in those days, the dances were very militant, white people were very much in the minority, very smoky, just one lamp over the turntable, very intense. And then suddenly my tune comes on, alongside all these like, you know, raw, rough dubs that I was loving. And it's like, well, maybe I kind of can be part of it. And it was funny in those days, because previous to, like, you know, the internet and social media, like, there was no pictures of anybody.
Yeah.
And especially in Leicester, where I was living, it was very much a black scene. So you got black venues, black promoters, like black crowd, black sound systems. And I just presumed that the new wave of like dub were black. So like Conscious Sounds, Disciples, Alpha and Omega.
Surprise.
You could see on some covers, you'd see like Dub Judah.
Yeah.
But then when I was told, it's like, no, these people are white. Because I thought it would be a problem. Because it's hard to imagine now, but back in the day, it was really like, okay, this is like a black music scene. Is it going to be a problem for me, white guy, making music in this militant, inner city black scene? And then I'd seen that other people were involved in it, and then it all just started to take off.
Yeah, but I reckon, like, when you had the talk with Disciples on your podcast, and we're going to come to this also later, when Ross told his story about, like, giving this place to Shaka, and to still to this day, like, as reggae, I mean, dub sound system culture has this elusivity veil around it. Like, still, if you Google some of the people, you're gonna find maybe 2 photos of them, and that's it. Like Jatabi's, like maybe 1 photo of him. So yeah, it brings a veil of mystery too. But being like in the 90s, did for you personally, anything about rave culture of the late 80s play any role, or were you not part of it? I mean,
for sure. Like in the early 90s, it's kind of, again, it's hard to imagine now, but pre sort of 88, 89, there was no dance music with electronic music in the mainstream. There was just kind of, hip hop had just started, and you've got all this ska and reggae and punk and indie and all post-punk, all kinds of music. But this whole electronic music thing hadn't happened, and I watched it all happen. And I was really drawn into it. There was a big free party scene in the city around Leicester, and I used to go to like the free party raves out in the forest. And most of the free party scene in the world was playing really hard acid techno.
Yeah.
But in the scene I was around, which was these sound systems called DIY and Smokescreen, they were playing like deep American house music, but like instrumental, super deep music. And it was very much like dub music. So you've got bass lines, you've got drum patterns and rhythms, and there was a, you know, so as a dub fan, I could see some sort of connection there. And I was interested in how it sounded, and a lot of people were producing it around me, so I'd learn little sort of tips and kind of tricks from other producers who were making electronic music. And that definitely fed into when I started doing my music.
That's why I said, like in the beginning, when like Vibronics, the future sound of dub, like forward thinking thing. And I mean, if you look like first half of the 90s and the second half, correct me if I'm wrong, but one of your first releases was on Universal Egg, right? For me, maybe one of your kind of similar contemporaries were an Zion Train. So in that way that it took a lot of influence from like other music, and also they did not have a sound system like you. You didn't have a sound system, or ever?
No, because I'm a producer.
Yeah.
We talked about it many times about building a sound system, but the people that build sound systems, that's their thing.
Yeah.
They love it.
Yeah.
They want to be lifting the boxes, wiring it up, and you have to have this like warrior spirit where you're the first in the dance, you're the last to leave. And I was a bit more like just geeky in the studio really, and I just like, when I was a teenager I went to a couple of really shitty little studios, and I just kind of blew my mind. It's like, wow, this is where records are made. I really like records. This is a cool place. I want to be in here. So I always fell in love with studios, and then the dub thing was always all about the studio. And I started to check for like, you know, King Tubby and Scientists and people who were making total studio music. It's like, yeah, this is my thing.
Yeah, considering that you could take certain liberties to travel around easier, you know, as a DJ set or as a live act, or how you imagine it or how you did it. So when was your first time out of the UK, and how did that come about?
Well, I mean, it's interesting because like in the UK, we don't have so much of this culture of inviting a producer to play on the sound system. It's very much like a producer will give the music to the sound system, and then they will play it, and you'll build good relationships with the sound system. But outside of like UK, there was much more of a kind of vibe where, oh, we like your music, please come and play on our sound system. And that sort of continues to this day, like last night playing on the Munchies sound. But that doesn't exist so much in UK, so it was always like we had to travel to do that, because people just wouldn't do it in UK. But the very first, sort of, how it all started was '97, because Zion Train had this label called Universal Egg, and they'd taken a bit of time off like touring, because they'd been very successful in the 90s, like major label, playing big shows. And then they signed a few artists, myself, Joffrey, and some non-reggae artists. And they said, look, we're going to do a tour. Do you want to come on tour for 4 weeks? And I was like, yeah, great. But it totally opened my eyes, because before that I knew I wanted to do music. But I just didn't know how, because there isn't much like music industry in my city. It's a small kind of poor city. But going on that tour and seeing like, okay, so this is actually like a job. You like do it every day, and you play to people, and then you pack your stuff up, put it on the tour bus, and then go to the next city and you do it again. It's like, right, okay. And just, you know, it sounds so obvious, but I just didn't know that's how you did it. Because music, I was young, and it was all about the vibe, and I was just totally into the passion of the music. But to make that bridge into like, okay, you want to do it every day, you want it to be your career, how do you do that? And I had no idea. But things like that really helped.
I mean, where was it to your first one with Zion Train? Where were you?
We went to Belgium, to Germany, to Netherlands, and to France.
Nice.
4 weeks.
Nice.
And it's funny, like last week I was at Rastaplas Festival in Netherlands, and I sold some records to a guy who has a stall, and he was reminding me that he came to 2 of those first shows in '97. And so it's kind of interesting to reminisce about this distant age, like nearly 30 years ago.
Yeah. I mean, since then you cover most of Europe. You played also in Asia, and recently you came over US too, right?
Yeah. I mean, like none of, again, in the UK, like there was, because of the, like the Windrush population, the Caribbean population, there was this connection to reggae music. Reggae music in Jamaica and UK were like totally linked.
Yeah.
And we had no idea that there was any scene outside of the UK, because again, it's pre-internet, pre-mobile phone, and you just, you know, you pick up, I heard somebody played in Germany, and it's like, wow, I didn't know that was possible. And then because like when we started, there were no sound systems in France. There were no sound systems in Germany.
This is really, especially the France thing today, so you
can't imagine it, exactly. Yeah, but there were none. And like I was saying when we were talking about, just before we started the interview, when we used to go to France in the 90s, the biggest question we would get asked is, what is dub? Because the few people that followed it knew it, but there were loads of people that just didn't know what it was because it was so unknown. And you can't imagine that now in France, which has this huge dub culture. The biggest dub and sound system culture in the world really is in France now. But it never used to be like that, and there never used to be sound systems. And like, you know, here we are in Croatia, Sound System Festival. But like, you know, when I first came, like 21 years ago, Digitron had just started with the sound system, and that was the kind of first one. But there were no other sound systems, and there probably weren't any other sound systems in any of the surrounding countries. And it's like, you know, we've got the Echotronics sound system here, but when they started as King David Warriors, they were the first sound system in Italy, and that was probably like 99 maybe. So again, it's hard to imagine Italy, no sound systems.
How were you received in like very beginning in the early 2000s? Like,
it was a mixed bag, to be fair. It was a mixed bag because we were doing something new, people didn't know about, and I mean, coming from UK, we've always, it's only now I look back I realise it. I didn't even realise it at the time, but people would look fondly on UK music, because obviously, you know, Beatles, Rolling Stones, Pink Floyd, punk music, rave music, you know, drum and bass, dubstep. There's been a lot of influential music to come out of UK, and people would look to UK as a place of interesting music, because in those days there wasn't much of a scene in France for music, for like French music that was known outside of France, and the same in many other countries. So in terms of playing there, like, then a lot of people would be surprised. They would be like, what is this music? It's interesting, but I don't have any, I can hear it's reggae, but it's kind of really heavy, but it's also really upbeat and full of energy. And you know, I was always working originally with Richie Roots, rest in peace, the original Vibronics MC. So you've got someone chanting on the mic, sirens and delays, you know, just like it is now. It's really not changed, because we're just continuing that Jar Shaka blueprint. But people were just surprised because they hadn't heard it. They were like, what is this? So sometimes you just get, you know, you wouldn't get people jumping up and going crazy because people just didn't, they're just taking it in for the first time. And a lot of the time they were enjoying it, but they just didn't know how to engage in it. And that was the same in many, many countries around the world.
Yeah, like I saw a lot of footage of like Sound Train in the late 90s in Poland, and I think some maybe also you, slightly younger. And it's interesting. It is interesting in that way, and also left like mushrooms after the rain. You know, just jumping up new sound systems where we like.
It's a virus, definitely. Because you have to go to a sound system session to experience it and to feel it and to witness it. You can watch YouTube videos. You can listen to tapes, as they used to be. You can listen to recordings. But to actually attend one and see what it's like and experience it, that's when you're more likely to want to continue that yourself. Because the way I see it, like what's different about a sound system session, and you know, I listen to a lot of people kind of, hi mate, you're right, like criticising the way things change, because people criticise criticise anything new, like you know, the Scatterlights, they criticise reggae. And then, you know, the Roots Radix, they criticise the Steppers, and it's like, you know, it's kind of, there's always the next generation. You know, when the digital thing happened, people went crazy. So there's always a criticism of new things. And there's a lot of talk about how reggae's maybe lost its soul, lost its direction. But you come to any sound system session, and you can see that it's different to like a rave, because it has this kind of, still has this spiritual political message, and it still has these really important words, and it's not just hedonism. It's like, it's a lot of fun, people dance and enjoy it, it's great, people get mashed up, do what they want, people feel very free, but it has this extra message that you don't get in other music, and other music's more just fun. You know, let's say techno or dubstep or bass music, sure. It's like, it doesn't, it's just let's go out and enjoy it, which is great, there's no criticism of that, but there's the reggae sound system music just has this extra layer of political, social, spiritual vibe on top, which is still there, I think.
Sure. It's education and entertainment, like in one, always, yeah. So, considering those early tours, you said it was Sea Splash 2004, and yeah, for me personally, I think I saw Vibronics first time in 2008 in Zagreb or something like that. How was your first time coming to Croatia? I mean, and yeah, it had a long-lasting effect on you, as I can see.
I'm very home and relaxed here, so I mean I'm kind of half Balkan now. Married to a Bosnian, so you know there's no way out for me. It's like I'm just part of the scenery now. But it's funny coming here the first time because like that was 2004. Yeah. So you're talking a long time before EU. So you've got borders in Slovenia, borders here, a lot of checks and kind of. And the border posts were sort of, you know, you got duty-free shops and casinos still, and it was just like a different world of kind of, but we felt like, wow, we were really going somewhere different. And because of the history, obviously, of ex-Yugoslavia, there was still a lot of talk of like, oh, you want to be careful going there, mate. So to actually come here and like see what it's like and kind of experience, obviously, you know, coming to Istria, like totally beautiful place. And we're coming from this like grim, rainy island in Northern Europe, and suddenly there's sea and people like enjoying it. And again, we were just surprised to see reggae culture so strongly supported here. But then you had this whole team of like the original Radical Dub Collective team who fell in love with the dub reggae sound system vibe, and they wanted to bring it to their homeland, and I've seen that happen in so many countries, Japan, in Brazil, in Mexico, just so many countries people do the same thing.
Yeah, you witnessed the cultural ground zero, basically, there. I mean, some of them are now pizza enthusiasts, but fuck it.
They're good pizzas.
Yeah, great pizza, fucking you cannot blackmail the key to anything, like, you know, there's J-Rock, you know. But you just, but you had a US tour, like, what is last year or this one? How was it? Basically, I think I talked with Fikir Lamlak about, like, sound system scene in the US, and I got, like, a bit of a mixed response there. I mean...
USA is very much like a lot of parts of Europe were, like, 25 years ago. Where there's people that are really enthusiastic, maybe they've built a sound system, maybe they've got a studio making music, but most people just don't know what it is. Because you don't, what's a bit different about USA, there isn't so much of a connection with reggae music.
Yeah,
it's
true.
Much more connected to like dubstep, which was really big in the States. So it's kind of grown more out of that. But it's just starting, so just people are starting to build sound systems and put on events. So when I've been there, it's just been a real mixed bag of like very small sessions with just a few faithful people that love it.
Really?
To some bigger sessions where you've got like a few hundred people. But some of them are really small. You'd be amazed by how different it is.
But it's really interesting to see, like, you played in LA, right? And you got all the elements like as Mediterranean, as the Caribbean, the sunshine, the weed, also multiracial, blah blah blah, and still it kind of didn't spring out of it. Like
I say, there isn't that connection with reggae music so strong, and America's got such a huge music industry that people are well catered for with music. So to bring something new, especially something that doesn't relate to anything you've listened to before, really, is quite a hard thing to do. So I do think it's going to take some time if it does take off there. But it's a really interesting place to travel around, and I say the same thing to everybody, like, because of the bad side of USA, like Donald Trump and Elon Musk and all these horrendous people think that's all there is, but it's just not like that. There's loads of really cool people really trying to do good stuff as well, but they kind of get shadowed by the arseholes who are just trying to mess it up for other people. So, but there's some good things going on.
Yeah, it's like who would say the US is the final frontier of sound system culture, like for such a big country there. In Corona times, which now seem like ages, like a bad dream, I think I found a mask in one of my pockets like a few weeks ago. Just told me like, okay, well the truth is, you gone seriously into some podcasting and started the Life and Dub podcast, which really had like it echoed true, and I think I listened to all of the episodes, and you being an insider and probably you know all of the lot there for years and years, had like the privilege to have and the luck to have like a relaxed conversation with them. It's not like like this, like an interview.
I'm quite tense right now. It's funny because the podcast started before the Corona thing. Because basically, I was walking to my studio, and I didn't want to listen to music because I'm going to be listening to music all day in the studio. And I started to listen to these things called podcasts that people have been talking about for years, but you kind of need a reason to listen to a podcast. So I had this kind of walking commute, and I started to listen to all sorts of stories about music and studio and whatever, but there weren't any reggae sound system ones. I really looked and there was nothing, and it's like, okay, well, I'm going to make one then. So I started at the beginning, and then the lockdowns happened. And I managed to continue doing it, and they became like a real lifeline for a lot of people, because just to hear about something other than the world's going to end, and to just see that these people are still, they're still alive and they're still doing their thing, was really powerful. And a lot of people have spoken to me about it afterwards, about how important it was. And I will continue with it as well. The plan definitely is to continue. But it's very time consuming, and also the people that you want to interview take a bit longer to get on board. It's like, I want to interview the people that are deep in the scene, so it always takes a bit longer, and I've just been so busy since the COVID, just touring and recording and everything, but I will continue with it.
Yeah, because it was like lots of untold stories before. I mean, you couldn't hear it in any other way, like who would have known that Manasseh has like a direct connection to Turkey and blah blah, but I listen to a lot of them, and there's always one legendary name that pops up, and this is Jatabis, basically, yeah. And have you got any connection with Jatabis regarding maybe production or hardware or any Jatabi story?
Well, Jatabis was the biggest, most popular sound system that would play in Leicester, where I live, but just before I moved there. So when I moved there, he kind of stopped playing.
Really?
Everybody would talk about Jartubbies. And then, basically, when Avashanti started, he was using the old Jartubbi sound system, which was like the best reggae sound system in the country in terms of like power and just sheer kind of sonic clarity. And then Jartubbies started playing out again, I guess like early 2000s. But he was always active in the studio, like doing mastering and pressing and involved in music production, and obviously sound system production and making preamps, amplifiers, the whole sound system thing. So I met Jartubbies when he started pressing the first Scoops records, and I had the fortune to sit down with him many times and hear amazing stories, because the sound system scene in the UK in the 80s was like, there was some quite crazy shit going on, and Keith was like a fantastic storyteller. So I had heard all these wonderful stories about sound system. But Jartubbies still plays out. I mean, he played in Leicester, in my city, like 3 weeks ago, and Vanya and I were there, and great to see them all. We have a very good relationship with them. Still sounds incredible. For me, you know, the best sounding sound system in the world for reggae music, because it doesn't sound anything like a PA. But it sounds fantastic. It doesn't hurt your ears, but it's incredibly loud and powerful. And it just, yeah, it's an incredible thing to experience. I'd recommend anybody to check it out.
Yeah, those who can, I mean, like, really not following if he does it still internationally that much over the year, but...
And especially in terms of taking the sound system, I mean, people have started to again, since, like, I mean, Brexit's been a total disaster, it's just total shite.
Yeah.
And it's made things much harder for people to move around with their sound systems. But it has started again, and there are people playing with their sound systems from UK, in Europe. But also the other side is that, you know, look what we were playing on last night.
Yeah.
The sound systems, like, they're amazing all around the world now. Because they never used to be. Like, when I first started getting booked to play on sound systems, a lot of them were not so good because people are coming totally from DIY, homemade world, not much budget. So we had to play on all sorts of sound systems that weren't so good. I mean, they were just built on vibes only, really. But now it's much easier to get the knowledge, and the scene is much bigger, so it can support these bigger sound systems. So there's kind of like, because the UK sound systems were the most important and the most powerful and whatever, but there's so many amazing sound systems now worldwide. It's not so important to bring a sound.
Yeah, I mean, ABBA brought his sound to Soundstation, I think, and it was like a gargantuan piece of work, you know, to do. But you mentioned your Scoops label for, what is it, 50 plus releases now, or?
83, I think.
My God, and still going strong, but you still also do, of course, dub plates and whatnot. So this, could you tell me, like, is there a mental process of selecting a dub plate and who to give it to? Or do you play around with it? Big up Francesco Lionsnail over there for the question, you know. It's like, do you deliberately choose to do what, or do you like toss it into the world?
First of all, I make the music.
Yeah.
And then I'm still very, very busy and active making music. I'm in the studio pretty much every day that I'm not touring, making music all the time. Most of it never gets released. There's so much stuff just sitting there, kind of waiting for something to happen.
Yeah.
And very often I'll make some music and then I'll think, oh, I'll send these to this sound system or that sound system, because each sound system kind of has their own style. So I'll pick from what I have, but I don't really make it to order or anything.
Have you had any like unexpected fails or hits in like
the whole thing is an unexpected hit?
Yeah,
I mean, you know, I'm in my 50s now, and I'm here in beautiful Istria, playing at a dub sound system festival, which hundreds of people attend. And if someone had said that to my younger self 30 years ago, I would have said, you're tripping, man, there's no way that's going to happen. Like, how can that happen? It's physically impossible. Like, where is Croatia? And sure, there's no sound systems there. So, and then, you know, years later, here I am. So the whole thing is a surprise hit, because I wanted to do music. From when I heard it when I was a kid, there was nothing more important to me than music. And it's funny, because when you're younger, like, everybody is into music, but you start realizing slowly only a few of you are really crazy about
really into it, really past the age of 20 or something, yeah.
And then people slowly sort of drop off and you continue with it. But there was no plan other than I want to do music. And I had no idea it would take me to the places that it took me to, and continues to. There's always surprises of, oh, you're being invited to this country, that country.
Yeah, I read as besides besides creating the music for that, you also did like design for theatre installation, headphone tours, and many other projects. And one of them is called Distant Drums, the mixed media installation. If somebody heard about it, I checked it out. It's amazing. And can you tell me something about this, in short?
Yeah, like my side hustle for years, because again, to do music is not an easy like career choice. I wouldn't recommend it to anybody. It's like a really stupid thing to do. Do something sensible, I would say. But because me and a couple of friends were running a studio years ago, and we hooked up with this kind of theatre company, and they wanted some music for one of their shows, and we started to make this kind of that kind of film, music, atmosphere stuff. And I've continued to do that as my sort of side thing, 1 or 2 days a week for the last 20 years, many different strange kind of projects. And occasionally I've merged it with my love of reggae music. And a few years ago, because I work very closely with Madhu Messenger, who's been involved in Vibronics for 25 years. And he's an academic, he's an expert in black history. He's finishing his PhD at the moment. And he's just an amazing source of information about the history of reggae music and the history of the travel of black people from Africa to the Caribbean into Europe. And we decided, well, let's try and make something informative. And in the UK, there were problems, like there always are, with racism and misunderstanding. And it's like, well, let's do our little thing to try and help show people the story. Because all the problems come about, the way I see it, from ignorance, just people not understanding
as Buddha
what's
said.
going on. So we decided to make this kind of crazy show. We worked with these dancers in Leeds who made the first sort of black British dance organisation, and they all come from Soundsystem. So they were like really excited to do a show based on. The show was like we made a sound system that looks like a sound system like this, but instead of speakers we had TV screens, and we worked with El Gran Latido sound system in Bogota, Colombia, who made all these animations. And Madhu wrote this kind of story about the history of music, the idea that this drum beat came from Africa, crossed the Atlantic as part of the slave trade to the Caribbean, and then came to the UK, and then spread worldwide, and that's the kind of beat of reggae and sound system. And the idea that this is the history of it and where it comes from. So we kind of tried to tell that story using these animations with these performers. And we would take this, what looked like a sound system, but it was just these screens, onto the sort of streets of city centre UK, and did this crazy dance sort of thing, and people were like, what is this? This is totally bonkers. But the reaction we got was really good, and like the history of it for me is really important. That's why I did the podcast so heavily. I'm fascinated by the stories of things, where things come from. So, and I like to try and share that. And like the story of reggae music, there's much more knowledge about it, but it's still, partly a story that's never been told, and people have, black history's kind of hidden away, really. And there's so many things that I think are important to tell people about, and projects like that are really good
and a
to
lot
do.
of unsung heroes of it who never got the credit they deserved, in a way also, yeah. And completely side note, I had a rumour, and I want you to say if it's true or not. Did Banksy design the logo for Vibronics?
Did Banksy design the logo for Vibronics? Yes, he did design the logo for Vibronics.
Shocking up.
It's just another crazy story along the way. Back in the 90s, in the free party scene in UK, he was part of a free party sound system in Leicester. And he was a graffiti writer. He comes from Bristol, but he'd studied in Leicester and spent time in Leicester. And he had started to do more and more graffiti work and art stuff. And I just started Vibronics. And he was going out with my friend. And I said, and I knew him as Robin. And I said, do you think Robin will make me a logo? Because he's a good artist, isn't he? And he was unknown then, totally. And he did this picture. And I was like, well, that's absolutely incredible, fantastic, well done, thank you very much. And it's only years later, it's like, wow, I actually got Banksy to do my logo. It's a totally unbelievable story. But he was, I'm sure he won't remember me now. This is like way back in the 90s.
What really?
But yeah, he was an unknown artist then, and now he's gone on to be the most famous artist in the world. And it's just a totally crazy thing that you couldn't predict. And if I'd have been told then, this guy who has designed the logo is going to go on to be the most important artist of a generation, I'd have been like, not to disrespect his work, which is fantastic, but just like, well, no way, how can that happen? It's unbelievable. So,
Same could be said about you, the hippie dreadlock kid and blah blah blah. from Leicester and ends up doing Japan, Croatia, and whatnot, and bringing music to the
I'm
world.
not sure about the hippie. I come more from the punk side.
Okay.
But no, I've got one foot in both. One foot in both.
What keeps you going to this day? Like, it's really like, is it like a fever you can't sweat off, or?
Well, I mean, I still love music. I love it. I love making music. I've never got bored of it. I've always got ideas for new things I want to do, new projects I want to do. I like doing these collaborations with people, so I always think, oh yeah, that could be good to do a project with this person or that artist. I just constantly have these ideas, and then you work on them, and then most of them, or some of them, actually happen. And yeah, I just continue to have that, really. And my wife Vanya is here, so without my wife, I would find it very difficult. So to have great, like, supportive people around me is very important. I've been lucky to work with so many artists, and it's very inspirational to work with other artists and get new ideas, because I see a lot of people become kind of bitter when they're older, and they kind of lose interest and lose sight of what's cool. But I've just managed to still like music. Like I said earlier on, a lot of older people are kind of, some of them are kind of critical about how the sound system culture changes, but it's always been like that. And I come more from, like, there's a famous radio DJ in UK called John Peel, who would always champion the latest music. But he would always say, look, well, these old tunes are still my favourite, because he loved them when he was young, and it's the same for me. It's hard to feel that same vibe for something you'd felt when you were really young. And I appreciate that the older stuff is still kind of my favourite, but I can totally appreciate this new music, and I find it vibrant and interesting. And to still be able to produce music and connect it to people so people can enjoy it and dance and feel some relief and maybe some kind of upliftment, education, whatever through it, is like, you know, it's really powerful, and I'm really happy to be in that position.
Yeah, no, really thank you for that. I mean, when Munchie's Sound actually started with a proper sound system, you were one of our, if not the first booking that you and Madhu when you came to Pula, you know, and so you have also a big
That was in the winter, you see. We'd come to Pula in the summer.
Yeah.
Little did we know that in the winter it's not quite so warm. I do remember that also Verki was playing, and we stole his heater from his room because it was so cold. So Verki, wherever you are, I'm sorry, it was us who stole your heater.
He's over there, so with his new passion found in pizzas, too bad for that, but yeah. We need to maybe wrap it up a bit. Any questions from the audience, maybe?
Yeah, sorry, I realise there's all these people here, and I'm kind of looking here because the cameras are here. So to all of you that have your back to me, I'm sorry, I've just been focused on here, so apologies for that.
Not easy. Anybody? Okay, if they're shy as every year, you know, I think it's... But I'm gonna ask you something. If there were a book of dub, and there were your name somewhere in this book of dub, what would it say, Steve? I never heard your answer to that question, and you asked it so many times to many people.
Yeah, it's true. It's like I realised listening to podcasts that there was like all things, they come in a format.
Sure.
Like music comes in a format, and podcasts often they ask many people the same question, and it is interesting because then you get to see different people's interpretation. My answer would link into what you were saying earlier on about continuing to be interested in music, is like future sound of dub, because like dub music for me still sounds futuristic, and when I listen to like scientist albums, for me it still sounds like space age music. How they did that is just beyond me. It's incredible. It still sounds totally futuristic, and I'd always love that kind of vibe that is in dub music, this kind of future sort of thing. So that's always what I wanted to do, is to try and keep pushing it forward. So yeah, it would be, you know, future sound of dub. So even though, you know, years later, you know, but also, you know, just stuff to look forward to. Future for me is very important.
And that's that. Will be Vibronics / future sounds of dub. So we're gonna wrap it up with this one, Steve. Maybe if you got anything to add. our beautiful audience and the internet and whatnot?
Nothing apart from just to say thanks to anyone who supported me over the years, the people here enjoying the dance last night. I mean, I can't stand there on my own and play music to nobody, so to have that right vibe from people, which is how I felt last night, just people enjoying it, tuned in, uplifted by it, really means a lot to me. So, you know, respect to you all who've been involved in that. That's all I'd say, really, and just enjoy the rest of the festival. I mean, you're here, Soundsystems, see, doesn't really get any better than this, so, you know, just enjoy what's there, and big respect to Escape City. So cool.
We got still a few days of the festival left. Enjoy yourself and see you later, okay? Book.